I greatly enjoyed being able to focus on the disciplines that most interested me. I'm still on a journey of self-discovery, and this class has certainly spurred me along in my pursuit of deeper meanings.
I loved my experience in this class. I thought our final project was especially interesting because we had people from very different disciplines all looking at one topic, which was the Middle East and the Arab Spring, and we all had different ways of looking at it, and I think that collaborated very well to make our final piece, and I look forward to taking more classes like this.
I thought it was really cool. I really enjoyed how we learned about the computer science aspect from a different perspective. Learning about kind of where our current state of technology is, the problems we're facing with it, and how to approach that from a societal standpoint, and the policies that have to be implemented for the problems of the future and all that. It was really interesting. I learned to think about information and kind of the way our society works in a totally different way.
Hey, it's Atman. I'm really glad I got to take this course. I think I learned a lot, especially through our final project. Not only did it change my awareness on the events happening in the Arab Spring, but it also just gave me a whole new understanding of how connected ICT is with our lives.
Okay, so I really enjoyed working as a group on this project because I thought that everyone brought something really different aside from an interest in computer science, philosophy, or public policy. I also thought it was really interesting that the project was super open-ended, so I'm excited to see what other teams came up with. I found it really interesting applying one idea over 3 very different topics. At first, I thought that we wouldn't really be able to do that, but I think that we did it sort of well. Anyone say about it?
I really liked how open-ended all the problems were, so I think that really helped us think more about philosophy because the questions were really open-ended and we were allowed to interpret it our own way. And my favorite part of the class was probably reading the article about Paul Revere. I thought that was really cool.
Coming to this class, I was really interested in information and technology, public policy and philosophy, and kind of how they intersect and what problems occur when they kind of come together. I really like that we kind of learned about a whole range of topics. We went from bits and atoms to encryption to crowdsourcing, and even some things in philosophy like the ship of Theseus. And I like that we kind of skimmed over a range instead of delving too deeply into a couple topics. I also like that there was kind of a range of different learning experiences. We went to the dance studio in the Duke Gardens, but we also had guest speakers, and we had group projects. I think my favorite things that we learned about in this class were probably copyright, the line between intellectual property and public domain. I also liked when Go Wang came and talked about Smule and what he's doing for the music industry using his mobile apps. Yeah.
ISIS 110 was a particularly interesting course for me because it forced me to really look at issues from a multitude of perspectives. A good example of that was how, when we would talk about information theory, not only would we just talk about how routers would transfer data, but also the theories that came about decades, if not centuries, before computers were even possible. It also just made me look at issues from new perspectives because I would talk with other people to formulate answers to questions about issues facing modern society when it comes to privacy and technology.
I greatly enjoyed the subject and thought that the materials we used and learned from in class were both exciting and useful. I especially liked The Information Theory, A History of Flood by James Gleick. I would take ISIS again, probably, if it had new interesting content.
The class was pretty interesting. It was handled a little sloppily in terms of deadlines, assignments, and whatnot, but I was okay with that. I probably don't have the most objective viewpoint on it, though, because I find the subject matter really interesting. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty enjoyable class, and knowing what I do now, I would probably take it again.
So, ISIS 110. I guess a good place to start would be the project. It's definitely multifaceted. We had to write a paper, which was pretty straightforward, but then I had to learn how to write a policy memo. I had to learn how to make and edit a video, which I hope went okay. That's for you guys to decide. But I think that's really representative of the class, because we learned everything from the ship of Theseus to what a packet is and how it travels along the internet, and maybe back again if it needs to. And I don't know, I just thought it was a really informative class. I learned a lot about a lot of things, and it was a lot of fun.
Hey guys, I'm Jake. Just got done filming the projects for today. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the group. I think we worked really well together. We had really great communication. We weren't afraid at all to voice concerns or ideas amongst ourselves, and I think we worked really solidly together. The class as a whole, I think, went great. I love the sort of multidisciplinary approach to information, you know, from the ship of Theseus to bits and atoms, and how we sprinkle a bit of pub-pol, a bit of information sciences, a bit of computer science in there. I think it was a really cool way to approach the course, and I had a great time.
Hey, Alvin here. I had a wonderful time with Jake and Annie working together on this project. It was so much fun. I got a lot of laughs, and I learned a lot through this project. And for the class, thanks to Owen Astrachan and Orlin Fakarolov, those professors are wonderful, taught us the comp-sci and the philosophy aspect of information and technology. And as a comp-sci major, I got to experience the non-comp-sci technical parts. So I really got a lot out of this course, and it was wonderful.
Hey, Annie here. Just finished up our project. Great experience. Our group was very accommodating, and we fostered a positive environment with the free exchange of ideas and established open lines of communication throughout the project. Looking at the class as a whole, really enjoyed the breadth and depth of knowledge we were exposed to across disciplines. And my takeaway from the course is that when looking towards the future, the role of technology will only be seemingly limited by human imagination. So can't wait to see where the progression of technology and information goes from here.
This semester, I became much more critical of what I put online because of our discussions on privacy. I was made aware of how easy it is for certain individuals and organizations to find my personal information. Additionally, because of this class, I am much more critical of the government's use of surveillance as it jeopardizes the privacy of individuals.
This class allowed me to look at current events from a much different light, using my knowledge from all three aspects of the class. I learned from the computer science part, the philosophy part, and the public policy part to view current events like Edward Snowden's leaks and the NSA surveillance, also drone strikes, and lastly privacy concerns, and view these events with a better knowledge of what goes behind it and a better way to analyze them.
This class really helped me understand how society and technology can be intertwined and really complement each other. We learned about how music can be created by either one computer or a whole bunch of computers coming together to make sounds we never knew were possible without instruments. Also learned about how there's going to be technology that can actually buy stuff for us before we even know we want it, based on our interests and our previous purchases. And also I really learned about how computers work in a bare bones sense. Talked about encryption and how they use different numbers and keywords to come together to make one unique password. And also how the internet worked with a bunch of autonomous servers coming together and communicating information between each other to get you what you want.
This has been a really interesting class because my schedule has been pretty dominated with the humanities, with political science, English, and subjects like that. So it's been a nice break to kind of adapt some concepts I've learned in those courses to computer science, which is a really new and upcoming field, which a lot of my classmates are taking, so Comp Sci 101 and those kind of courses. And it's really interesting to get the philosophy and humanities aspect behind it, and kind of use my methods of thinking that I've been using in these other classes in a field that I've had very little to no experience in before. And it's interesting because I'm in Trinity, and a lot of the other kids in the class are in Pratt, it seems, and it's great for getting a very varied class student body. And as I'm sure you've said before, the class itself is very multidisciplinary, and yeah, it's been really interesting, and I've had a really enjoyable time.
I thought this class was interesting because it was a nice intersection between my other classes I'm taking. So I'm in two computer science classes, which are just pure computer science. I'm also in a history of science, medicine, technology. So for the technology one was interesting to see how, I guess, the evolution of information technology changed and sort of relate that to my class, history class. And then for, I guess, in computer science, when you do the classes, you sort of just like, you learn how to code and everything, but you don't sort of think behind it, or like what the implications of what these skills can bring. And so I guess it's interesting to see how all this actually impacts society in broader scopes. That's been very interesting, and also been fun for me as a senior to be with like a bunch of freshmen and sophomores, which is not something I'm used to. They're fun kids.
My time in ISIS 110 has been really enjoyable. One of the things I liked about the class is that we have done a lot of out-of-class learning. Probably one of the most exciting activities we did for me was when we went to the Duke Gardens to learn about coding and the possible inconsistencies that can occur while coding. Although I know I was probably a little off in some of my coordinates, mostly because trying to read a map of a garden is really hard, I felt that I learned a lot. My other favorite activity was when we went to the dance studio. I have no dance or even musical background, but I still found it really interesting to see how they combine their passion of the arts and technology, which are two completely separate fields of study, and used it to create new ways of making music and dancing. I think that this idea of combining different disciplines was really the meta message of the course, and it is what kept the class interesting. In most other classes, you learn about one perspective to different issues. In this class, we learned about different issues from multiple points of view. I think this really allows us to gain a complete understanding about the issues.
In this class, we learned about how information is translated through several different mediums. An example of that would be our discussion of the drums and how even without verbal communication, complex messages were communicated through this instrument. When communicating a longer message, more clarification is provided to account for errors or misinterpretations. Similarly, we all really enjoyed the garden project, which reinforced this idea that there is an increased chance for error when you are communicating a longer message. We learned that when providing information of any sort, you want to be repetitive so that if something in the message is messed up, the point is still clear because extra information was provided.
One of my favorite classes was when we discussed crowdsourcing and how information accumulates from a small effort by individuals making a significant impact. Similarly, Wren discussed how users all over the world have connected through music. Overall, this class has shown us how information can be shared globally and how the world has become much more interconnected. In our project, we specifically addressed how social media has enabled us to connect with a wider group of people at a faster rate.
Another interesting thing we learned was how people use a Bitcoin and how it is untraceable. This class made me aware of how easy it is for others to access your personal information. For example, we talked about websites that post people's mugshots and charge them for a removal fee. The idea of untraceable internet postings seems non-existent because there is almost always a record of online activity. This led us to develop the main ideas of our project as we focused on how the increased opportunities that social media creates can create or distort.
I liked this class because it taught us a lot about the lack of privacy in the internet and how people need to be careful of how they portray themselves online. I also really enjoyed learning about aspects of the internet that I'd never even heard of before, like bitcoins and crowdsourcing and things like that. It was also interesting to think about all the technology that surrounds us now that wasn't here even just a few years ago, and to think about all of the future technology and how different our lives will be then.
I thought this course was really interesting and how it taught us to learn about social media and the various aspects of philosophy and public policy and how it sort of affects, like how social media affects living in the 21st century and various aspects of our life like privacy and how we need to be cautious and careful about what we put out there because the idea of privacy is kind of being diminished in how accessible information is due to the various aspects of information technology and all those ideas.
All in all, I think this class has been a pretty good experience. It's been pretty unique. The topic of information and like social networks and stuff like that is kind of like lies at the intersection of like a lot of fields. I guess that's why it's cross-listed in so many fields. And I don't know, it was just really easy to discuss because it's really relevant to our everyday lives, especially like people in college. And yeah, I think that like the discussion itself was probably my favorite part overall.
Looking back on the ISIS 110 course, at the beginning I was just as clueless as the people shown at the beginning of the video, not really knowing as much about what was open on my Facebook or other social networking sites. where things said to be open to just your friends can really be more open to the internet. And I think this course has given me an opportunity to look into overall privacy in a way that I never expected. To be honest, I didn't understand the complete cross-listing advantage that came with it. And when I thought I was going to get a lot more public policy, I was able to learn about philosophy and information science and computer science in a way that now gives me a much better outlook on something that affects my daily life a lot more than I could have ever predicted.
What I loved about ISIS 110 is that there's no right answer to the problems or assignments given, and even more so, we have the freedom to take the project into our own hands and decide what we want to talk about. Our group was interested in Facebook and the surrounding problems of social media since it's relevant to us and really current today. It was really nice to have the freedom to research, discuss, and analyze what interested us rather than having to adhere to an assignment that the teacher gave us. Finally, I think that the group aspect of the class was really unique. While working in groups can pose certain challenges, I think it's really useful and necessary skill, which should be a more integrated part of the college curriculum. This group project was also a great way to bring together all of our work this semester, from the beginning of bits and atoms to minds and machines and then to networks. So yeah, I loved it.
I would really appreciate the effort that both professors and TAs had put in this amazing course. It's really a rewarding yet fun learning process. It definitely provides me with a new perspective of seeing both philosophy and information science. And in the future, it always inspires me to try something new, a new combination of different things. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caroline Wren. I am a senior public policy major, and I will be working at Cisco Systems after I graduate.
Hi, my name is Zakira Lance. I'm a freshman, hoping to declare computer science and international comparative studies as my majors next year.
Well, the bullying issue has always hit home for me. Growing up in this generation, you see a lot of cyberbullying cases that go unnoticed and unreported until it's too late. It's one of the many dark sides of technology, along with security and privacy issues. So my main focus on this project was the policy component. What is the most effective solution if there is one? It's interesting to see how criminalization has proven to be so ineffective, in part because of how rapidly technology evolves, but also the difficulty in writing policy that does not infringe upon our rights to free speech. So it seems that preventative education is our best bet for a solution for students, parents, and teachers, and I am optimistic about a change in the future.
I think our group really wanted to focus on cyberbullying and research this topic because it is a fairly new phenomenon that really fuels teens and young adults' activities on social networking sites. It's really about how things are perceived, and it's interesting to see how differently traditional bullying is perceived in relation to cyberbullying.
I think it's a great class. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm not just saying that. You know, my two passions are public policy and technology, so it was a great opportunity to see how they intersect along with philosophy. I would definitely recommend it.
Before starting this project or even entering this class, I never really considered the implications that technology had on the real world and how they could affect relationships. It seems like although we progress with genetic testing and medical technology, we aren't factoring in what it means for society and culture. I really enjoyed how this class tied it all together and not only had aspects of computer science and philosophy, but also had real-world applications. And it was interesting to see how public policy majors could contribute to one part of the class and computer science majors another, and then philosophy majors could bring in another aspect to the class. So overall, I think it's been a really great experience, and I'm glad that we got to work on these projects.
This class managed to blend together several different areas of interest into one cohesive unit. Coming into this class, I didn't expect all the different cross-listings to come together quite so well. At the end of this class, it is clear that philosophy, public policy, and even computer science are all linked in foundational ways.
The truly interdisciplinary effort, which seems to be one of the biggest goals for the Bass Connections programs. Thinking about an issue from a philosophical, policy, and computer science standpoint helps you look at an issue more critically by looking at it through a different lens. I'm in a different public policy class and a different philosophy class this semester, and this class captures elements of both, as you would expect from an interdisciplinary course.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Pieroni. I'm Trinity 2014. I've declared the ISIS certificate, so not only was it required of me to take this class, but it was also good for me to kind of step back a second and see what the ISIS department is all about. And this is a very good and detailed summary of what we do in the department, which is working and learning about technology and then bridging the gap between technology, computers, and society, so also the humanities. So unlike most classes in Trinity, and then I guess classes in Pratt, I wouldn't know, this department actually mixes the two together, and this class did a really good job at synthesizing that and giving an idea to those who did not know about the department, what the department entails.
I'm a freshman from London, and this has been obviously one of the first courses I've taken at Duke so far this year. It's been very interesting for me to explore a number of seemingly disparate topics and then see the connections between all of them throughout this class. We've explored things through networks, through censorship. We've explored the work of people like Edward Snowden, which is obviously a very current affair, which has been very interesting to see how things that we see in the news actually play out, and the ethics behind them, the law behind them. The course has been really useful for me in terms of exploring areas I don't think I would have done before. It's led me to think about taking classes I really hadn't considered before I came to Duke, and taken me to some pretty interesting academic places. So in terms of an eye-opener for a freshman, it's a fantastic class.
My name is Noah. As a freshman from North Carolina, I really had little experience with ISIS prior to taking this class. I unknowingly utilized technology every day without realizing the implications it had on society or culture. Following the completion of this course, I feel as if I have a better understanding of what ISIS is, along with how interdisciplinary studies in college can contribute to a deeper understanding of modern society and culture.
We hope we've been able to give you some insight into both censorship in China and what ISIS is like as a class to take amongst a range of years.
Thank you for watching.
Do I really have to say anything?
Use this, please.
The fact that we had two teachers in this class. That two teachers allowed me to be able to look at the topic from different perspectives, and I like how they also brought in elements of public policy into the class.
I really enjoyed this class because it made you think more about the communication impacts on culture and society. For example, the Duke Gardens, I really enjoyed that because you had to look at communication before internet and technology, and then like this project we're working on after, and that's kind of a cool perspective. Thank you.
I really enjoyed this class mainly because you guys made it really interactive, and not only did you lecture about certain materials, but you gave us an opportunity to give us our input. And whether it's the online surveys or just group projects, I thought it was a really great opportunity to take the information that you taught us and share it amongst our peers and learn from each other. And definitely that's a really great way of learning about communication and information within society. So thank you for a great class.